Would you like to introduce yourself to our viewers?
Susan, I would be happy to. I'm Dan. I'm calling in from Denver, Colorado, and probably a lot like most people at ICF, I am obsessed with building high-performing teams. And people and technology and anything and everything between. That passion for me started when I was in the Navy in special operations, where our team performance was life and death. And I haven't been able to shake that. So really have been building frontier technologies all at the intersection of performance and technology and what it means to be human. And I couldn't be more excited to chat with you today.
Perfect. Yeah, the being human thing is an area where we share a lot of passion and purpose, if you like. So, when we think about sharing meaningful moments, can you think of a time where you've observed human connection, technology, AI coming together in coaching?
Yes, when I look back on this year specifically, or 2025, there's one moment that I continually pops up in my brain over and over. I was sitting in on a coaching session. I wasn't leading it, but I was just observing. And the coach asked the CEO a very simple question. She said, "Hey, walk me through what happened in this key meeting that the CEO was leading earlier that week." And the CEO gave the answer that most leaders give. It was confident, it was polished, it was clean. And then the coach said gently, "Let's look together at what actually happened." So she pulled up a report of his behaviors from that meeting, nothing judgmental, nothing evaluative, just the signals. So she called out things like, hey, when conflict surfaced and he sidestepped it, or when someone tried to contribute, it was actually a board member and he missed it, when his body language shifted and the impact that had and how it changed the room, and even things like tone and phrasing and how that kind of really impacted energy and alignment. And how she shared scores of how this actually was able to be quantified. And watching her use that data, I would say surgically, but also compassionately to bring his leadership to life, I had goosebumps. Like my jaw was on the ground because it wasn't just data at that point. It was truth. It was this truth he had never really seen before. And instead of getting defensive, magic also happened back. He like leaned in and he finally saw the gap between how he thought he showed up in that meeting and how his team and the board actually experienced him. And that was the moments I realized, like, hey, this is the future of coaching,
Hmm.
not technology replacing the human relationship, but technology really revealing the reality. So then the human relationship can go deeper, really a performance system between the humanity of coaching and the data of technology. That to me was one of the most magical moments that I still get goosebumps when I think about.
Thank you for sharing that. It sounds, yeah, it would be great to have been in the room and seen that human connection really coming to life. Um, and you build AI technologies. So as we're experimenting and learning, and a lot of people are new and exploring AI, how do we ensure that we've got principles that help us keep AI human-centered, ethical, and inclusive?
Yeah, I think this is absolutely critical. And one, we can't just, start racing forward and not have these intentional conversations and not just conversations. We need to enact this too. So I got back in machine learning and AI, kind of went back when we were working back together, not directly, but at Airbnb, we were using machine learning to help understand human behavior online. And as we've been building Piloteer and also the companies kind of in between that, this has been, a guiding principle for me personally is like, I think it's super critical to have these value statements that you don't flex on, even if it's easier or cheaper, like it needs to be conscious because this is about humans. Specifically, the technology that we're designing is, again, even though it's working in parallel with humans, it's for us. And so we need to make sure we're building it together. So I'd say, when reflecting about my principles, I would say three or four come to mind. The first of which is maybe arguably the most important. The how matters, the details matter. So how we're building the models matters. Really, no shortcuts, no hitting the just trust us button. You don't start with data. You really start with purpose. What goes in matters. What stays out matters just as much. A model trained on one specific worldview will misread the rest.
Mm.
So really, I think it's important we design for both. You train for nuance, and really you build these guide rails before you need them, because how to build the models and how they come together. They're not just technical; it's really all about humans. So I think that's the first principle that I've learned. The second of which is, I know something that's also very important to ICF is this concept of like radical transparency. So it shouldn't be this black box. If we're scoring things, if we're trying to understand behaviors, we can't have it be hidden. We need to really have people understand exactly what AI is seeing, what we're not seeing, and why. Transparency again builds this trust, which is a very human piece, and it's something critical for all AI models, in our opinion. Principle three, I would say AI should illuminate, not intimidate. So it shouldn't feel like a surveillance. It shouldn't feel like you don't know what you're getting or what you're putting in, where it goes. It shouldn't have analysis without agency. I don't believe it's here to judge. It's really here to reveal, to really surface patterns that we as humans may be missing. And also to slow the moments down so we can see them more clearly. AI is an incredible technology that's really changing our world as we know it. But again, it comes down to intentionality. And I'd say the last one is human adoption is really the key driver for AI success, which is somewhat counterintuitive. The number one predictor of lasting AI success isn't the elegance of the model, not how many dollars went into trading it, it's leadership adoption and people. And so, right, how can we think about when even though we're using the most cutting edge technology, it's meant to be used for humans and making sure that we don't lose the human side of adoption with these new tools.
Yeah, I love that. And the connection between your last point there, adoption, and the first 2 points where it's about building trust and assurances, etc. So yeah, that's really, and the illumination. I like that phrase. So thank you for sharing those thoughts.
It's kind
If you
of like
could
a fire
imagine,
in your
I'm
background.
sorry. Yeah,
I just cut you. I was just saying it's kind of like the cozy fire in your background, that type of illuminate.
illuminate. Yeah. So if you could think of one shift that could positively change the future of coaching, what would it be?
The biggest shift ahead is moving coaching from a retrospective conversation to something that is closer to a performance system. So I've had a coach for 20 years. I will always have a coach. They're essential to me and so many people that I know to really leadership and overall team performance and development. But if we actually look at how the best teams in the world operate, whether it be elite military units or pro sports teams and Formula One, coaching isn't just an event, it's part of a system that's built on real-time data that's continuous and really structured reflection. So let's look at Formula One. I would love to be a Formula One driver in another life, but in Formula One, team monitors roughly 300
If you could imagine one shift to positively shape the next chapter of coaching, what would it be?
I see the biggest shift ahead as moving coaching from something that's a retrospective conversation to something that's more close to a performance system. So I've had a coach for 20 years. I will always have a coach. I'm a huge believer what this can activate for individuals and teams. But if we actually look at how the best teams in the world operate, let's take special operations teams, pro sports teams, symphonies, F1. Coaching for them isn't just an event, it's part of the system that's built on real-time data, continuous collaboration back and forth, the coaching and the data. So Formula One specifically, their teams monitor over 300 data points per second. Drivers are going to get real-time calibration during the race, and then they're going to have the world-class coaching before and after. And that combination, data and activation, is what produces this consistent elite performance. Businesses have really never had that before. So we've relied a lot on memory and perception and retrospective interpretation when we were so focused on what we were trying to do as well. So what I see the next chapter of coaching is integrating this real-time behavior signals into that equation, not to replace coaching, but to multiply its impact that in ways we can only just start to fathom. Because coaches then become these architects of performance system. They get new visibility, they get new leverage, they get new ways to help leaders grow in the exact moments that matter the most. And I see the role of ICF specifically in the community is to really lean into AI. You guys have such a phenomenal community that has adapted to so many things in a global environment so long. And I think if we don't lead with fear, but with a clarity that used correctly and intentionally, like we just talked about before, AI is going to make coaching measurable. It's going to make it more trusted. It's going to make it more actionable and more essential than ever. So I think this moment that we're in now is the time for coaches to really not just step back and kind of be laggards in terms of this new technology, but we can set the standard together of how we lead performance systems.
Hmm. That Formula One analogy is really helpful, actually, I think. So thank you for sharing
Yeah,
that.
of course.
And if we look on the horizon, what changes about coaching and what stays the same?
What is always going to stay the same, I feel like, is the human element to it. Like whether you're leading an executive in Abu Dhabi or Shanghai or Denver, Colorado, there is this human element to who we are as humans. Humans are wired certain ways that we've been, from sociology and anthropology, we are who we are through millennia. And so I think embracing that humanity is something that's never going to change. And the delivery of the data with AI, that is going to be a very human element to it. But I think a lot of elements within coaching can change. And then it allows us as coaches to really focus on that magic moment where our interactions, the activation, the lasting change can be there too. So I think if we look at our scope of work as coaches, anywhere from how we're getting data to how we're brainstorming to how we're creating decks to telling stories to measuring our impact to all those different pieces where AI can help is really going to step us forward. But there will always be this critical humanity behind coaching that I don't think will ever change.
Mm. And also, I imagine the context, the kind of interpretation of the data and what it means in the physical world, the teams that you're part of.
You're exactly right. Yeah. I mean, all the coaches, the performance coaches I've worked with, like they're masters of their craft. The way that they pick up on things, a data signal on one end may mean something differently. So I think one, it speaks to how important contextualization is for AI models, but two, the delivery is super important too. And I don't think that's going anywhere for coaches. So I see a future where coaching is human computer teaming. So I see a world where coaches actually have a team with computers,
Mm.
but it allows them to use their superpowers in the way that really has that maximum impact, and all the other things that can kind of run in the background are used by AI.
Mm. Fabulous. Is there anything else that you'd like to share with us before we close our fireside chat?
No, just a general appreciation for the ICF community. The more, Susan, that we connect, the more I get brought in and chat with leaders and the coaches, like phenomenal cohorts. And mine is really a call to action. And so like, how do we together come together as a community of coaching and really set the standard of what AI should be, what it should look like, how it can be used, not to replace who what we're doing, to really augment and create that lasting impact. And truly, I mean, like this is the time for coaches that we can set the standard together. So it's more just a call to action to not just be a passive participant on the sidelines of this technology, but really how do we each do something together within the ICF community to really create the future that we want to have.
Mm. I think actually some of the signals that you've shared through this fireside chat are things we can move forward and maybe take a few as a call to action. So I love them. Yep.
Well,
Thank you
thanks.
very much, Dan.
Likewise.